Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 2530 Southwest Lenore Drive here in Beaverton, located at the front of the house. We're just to the right of the front doorway, and I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front of the home. So we're about 3 feet to the right of the first bedroom window here. That's to the right of the front door. You'll find your 4-inch ABS cleanout. All right, water's running. We're zeroed out here. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. We're checking the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Oh, that joint there wants to catch my camera. There's a little bit of spacing between that first joint there on the turn. Doesn't appear anything's wrong with it. I just don't think they butted the pipe ends all the way up. When they glued that joint, the camera kind of gets stuck on it if you don't ram through fast enough. So that flow line right there, my camera's situated kind of sideways right now, is absolutely spotless. That is exactly how you want your line to look. And that's what a line looks like when a home is doing a good job at keeping cooking oil, grease, fats, gunk like that out of the pipe. And I highly recommend keeping the same habit up. Grease buildup is something that I've grown to really hammer down on after 15 years and 25,000 sewer scopes now. I've done a lot of drain cleaning. It's a very common contributing factor to blockages occurring in sewer lines. Now, you know, some homes are mindful of it, some are not. Not everyone was taught that as a youngster. But you want to keep all that stuff out of the kitchen sink as much as you possibly can. It's the real quantity is when it gets you. When you dump a frying pan full of oil down the line, you know, for instance, that's where it's the most detrimental. Thin little coatings of Pam spray are not a huge deal. Hot water and soap handles that pretty nicely. So anything beyond that, though, a thin little coating of Pam spray, you really want to try and, you know, let your pans cool down and then wipe them out with a paper towel or scrape it off into a garbage after it's cooled. Or while it's still hot and liquid, you can pour it into a glass jar or metal can, something that can handle high temperatures. Metal's often better just because it doesn't always react like glass does to that temperature shock. Anyway, just keep it from going down the line. That's the important thing, and you can keep your line clean. It makes your line much more forgiving under abusive scenarios, like when kids are flushing lots of balled up toilet paper down the line, when wipes, things like that go down the pipe occasionally. And I've got a pretty good example of why to do that here in just a second. Here. Oh, my image just cut out there for a second. All right, we're going to go locate really quick while the pipe drains out. That just reset my foot counter. We're at 66 feet out right now. Now I have to do some relocating here as we get closer in. I'm getting some locate signals all over the place, almost like there's a signal running up and down one of the utilities right now. I get a very strong locate signal at the front right corner of the property near the utility boxes. I also get one perfectly in line with the utility boxes at the very front edge of the yard, in line with those. We're going to pull back in here a little way, see if I can get a better signal somewhere. And if it comes down to it, I'll try and visually track the line out, follow it out. So the stringy stuff in the flow line right here, all that just appears to be human hair there. Some more we just went past there. Stringy stuff at the top of the pipe, at the kind of bottom left-hand corner of the screen is just cobwebs. More hair there. A little bit of debris in the line right there is what's causing that wire to stand. As you can see, the wire dissipates off immediately. So right here is what I was going to use as an example, going back to what I was talking about with grease. So we've got a very tiny little belly right here. This thing is rinky-dink, super short-lived. So I apologize. I'd have to go back and review the foot counter for the original advance out of the exact footage here, but for our sake right now, 27. So you have a 2-foot long belly there. My camera only submerges when it gets bent around the corner here. It's actually not even submerged at all. There's only maybe a ½ inch of water there at worst. So what I'm just, it's a 2-foot belly, 2 feet just prior to the transition joint with about a ½ inch of standing water. So and I'm gonna go locate really quick here just to verify where we are. And then I'll kind of talk about grease buildup in that area right there. All right, that's the direction I thought it was going here. So the line jaunts under the driveway, gets around close to halfway across the driveway, kind of crosses into about halfway down the driveway and then turns around the midpoint and shoots out to the street. Anyway, that belly there is teeny tiny. You can see how all the pipe coming back from that area there is spotless clean, zero buildup. I would not expect to see major buildup in a belly or prior to it. Everything prior to some kind of defect is really what tells you the story as to whether or not it's ever blocked or backed up. And for reference, I don't even consider repairs at this point until I've got at least a 5-foot piece of pipe with at least 1 inch of water. That's only when it's very close proximity to the home, underneath the house, and usually in old rough pipe materials. But if you get a bad habit of dumping lots of grease and cooking oil down the line, grease will build up anywhere in a pipe, but it especially likes to do so when it hits any amount of standing water, because it cools down rapidly, it floats to the top of the water and starts to stick to the sidewalls. So you can get kind of a constriction that occurs. So when someone's abusing a line really heavily with that kind of grease buildup, you can turn a spot that has basically no chance of ever causing a problem into a spot where you could potentially get one. You know, it would still take a bit of doing on the homeowner side, even with grease buildup, to get to that point, but that's just kind of for instance. You get a inch thick layer of grease buildup there, and then someone flushes 14 balls of toilet paper down the pipe, and that's where you can get a spot like that to actually turn into something. So it takes a great deal of doing on the homeowner side to ever be able to get to a scenario like that. So all the pipe we just scoped there, all of it is intact and in good condition. The concrete pipe, I would say, is in very fair condition for its age. It's sloped, graded nicely. In this part of town, being that you're responsible all the way out into the roadway, unless something has just changed recently, that is the case out here, it really behooves you, if this is a home you're going to be in a while, to rescope the line periodically. And that is for the sake of watching those pipe joints in the concrete. Concrete joints are grouted, and the grout, like any kind of concrete, it's a type of concrete itself, wears out slowly but surely. And what can happen over time is the joints can become exposed to the ground. The joints will slowly but surely, typically, start to cause hydro erosion because they can let groundwater and dirt flow through them, which is what's supporting the sewer line in a lot of cases. And it can lead to progressive settling. It usually happens slowly. But you want to watch for signs of that. I usually recommend rescoping every 2-3 years on lines like this. That way, you don't miss an opportunity. Nowadays, with trenchless epoxy lining, you can update that pipe out there without even digging a hole. Sometimes you have to put a clean out in a little bit closer, like in the yard adjacent to the driveway, but you can avoid digging a driveway up in a street. So it's a very good idea to do that, so you don't miss an opportunity to have some big cost savings down the road and a lot less of a headache to deal with. So we're not there yet. That's looking into the future. It's just something I always recommend. Anytime you have older lines, concrete pipe, especially concrete and clay, both have a similar issue. Not that you have clay here. So as we sit here today, good flow all the way to the main lateral. Little tiny belly there, the 2 feet of pipe prior to the transition with a ½ inch of standing water in it is far too minor, in my opinion, to need any kind of repair work. And especially made evident by the fact the line is spotless clean, almost no buildup to speak of in the line other than a couple scraps of toilet paper. Sewer line is functioning properly at this time.